The world will let you get away with anything as long as you let them pretend they didn't see it.
The Man in the Truck. South Side, Chicago, Illinois, 1954 to 1956. This entry comes harder than the others. The pen feels heavier. The composition book seems to resist the words. But a complete record demands complete honesty. And honesty, real honesty, not the church kind, means looking at the things that shaped you, even when they come wrapped in shame and silence. Especially then. Chapter 1. A stranger rolls by. Every block had its rhythm back then. The butcher hollering through the alley door, bottles rattling in milk crates, cards smacking on a stoop. Routine. Safe. Or so folks told themselves. Then came the truck. Whitewashed sides, dented panel, coughing smoke as it crawled slow down the street. Too slow, too deliberate. It didn't belong, but it kept coming back, like a ghost that wouldn't take the hint. Summer of '54, I was 12 going on 13, old enough to run errands alone. Young enough that nobody thought twice about a boy loitering on corners. The truck first appeared on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was when Mrs. Kowalski beat her rugs, and the whole block smelled like dust and old wool. The truck was a Dodge panel van, maybe 10 years old, primer showing through where rust had been sanded. No business name on the side. No company logo, just blank white metal and a windshield that caught the sun wrong, turned into a mirror instead of a window. Couldn't see who was driving, not at first. Just that it was there, idling at the corner, engine coughing like an old man with a bad chest. Kids whispered. Mothers tightened their lips. Fathers grunted, "Mind your own damn business." That was the code. Eyes forward, unless it sat on your own doorstep. Silence meant safety. Silence meant complicity. I knew that much, even at 12. The truck came back Wednesday. Thursday. By Friday, it was part of the scenery, familiar as the fire hydrant we used for first base. Adults stopped noticing. We didn't. Kids got a sense for things that don't fit, like dogs smelling fear. But we didn't say nothing either. Saying something meant being the one who brought trouble, and trouble reflected back on you. He'd park across from the lot where we played stickball. Just sat, watching, waiting. My gut twisted. Not fear, not exactly. Curiosity. The kind that makes you push open a dark cellar door, even when you know better. I can still see the sun bouncing off that metal side, blinding, like a spotlight. But it wasn't on him. It was on me. The other kids felt it too, I think. Tommy Kowalski stopped playing as hard when the truck was there. Mary Sullivan would make excuses to go home early. But me, I kept playing, kept performing. Because even then I understood. Being watched meant mattering. And in a house where the strap spoke louder than praise, mattering was currency. I started showing off, hit the ball harder, ran faster, argued louder over rules, all of it directed toward that blank windshield, that invisible audience. I wanted him to see me, wanted him to know I was worth noticing. Be careful what you wish for. Chapter 2. The Invitation. He never begged. He baited. A stick of gum, a sweating bottle of pop, a joke about grown-ups being fools. Nothing dirty, nothing loud. That was the trick. It felt ordinary. First time he spoke was a Saturday morning, 3 weeks after the truck first appeared. I was sitting on the stoop, reading a comic book I'd borrowed from the drugstore without exactly asking. The truck pulled up, and this time the door opened. He was ordinary. That's what I remember most. Not handsome, not ugly, not young, not old. Brown hair going thin on top, work shirt with the sleeves rolled up, hands that looked like they knew labor. Could have been anybody's uncle, anybody's neighbor. That was the point. I understand now. Predators don't look like monsters. They look like everybody else. First time he spoke, his voice was easy, low, almost kind. My old man's corrections came with straps and whistles. This man's correction was different. A pause, a raised brow, the suggestion I was already in on the secret. "That's a good comic," he said. "You like the detective stories?" I nodded. Couldn't help it. Nobody asked me what I liked. The old man asked what I'd done wrong. Ma asked if I'd prayed. Teachers asked if I'd done homework. But nobody asked what I liked. "Got a whole stack of them in the truck," he said. "Crime stories. Real ones, not just made up. You want to see?" I should have said no. Should have remembered every warning, every stranger danger lesson from school. But those warnings assumed strangers were scary. This man was offering something I wanted, something I wasn't supposed to have. Knowledge. Adult knowledge. The kind hidden behind locked doors and in whispered conversations. "Hop in for a spin," he said. A boy doesn't need more than that. To feel picked. To feel noticed. I didn't tell my folks. Couldn't. My father would have beaten me bloody. My mother would have prayed me raw. Besides, it was mine. A private crown. That ride around the block felt worth more than church pews or nods at the dinner table. It meant I counted. The neighbors saw. They always saw. Mrs. Chen was hanging laundry. Mr. Patterson was washing his car. The Brennan kids were in their yard. All of them saw me climb into that truck. All of them looked away. That silence was its own invitation. Chapter 3. Inside the metal room. The truck stank of gasoline and grease, something sweet turning sour in the corners. Not clean, not chaos. Tools stacked neat, a rag folded sharp. Radio hissing more static than tune. He slid me behind the wheel, let me hit the horn. The sound cracked through my chest like I'd woken the whole block myself. Inside was a workshop on wheels, Wrenches arranged by size, screwdrivers in a wooden rack, a toolbox with every drawer labeled in neat handwriting. Order, the same kind of order the old man demanded, but voluntary, chosen. That impressed me more than anything else. A man who kept his space organized, without threat or strap. He showed me how the clutch worked, how to shift gears without grinding them. His voice stayed easy, educational, like a teacher, but one who respected you enough to explain things properly. The old man just barked orders. This man made you feel like a partner, like you were learning secrets meant for adults. The ride was short, just circles, streets I already knew. But inside that box, the air was heavy. No strap, no rosary, no neighbors. Just me, the hum of the engine, and his eyes flicking to the mirror. He didn't need to touch me yet. He owned the space without lifting a finger. Power doesn't always shout. Sometimes it just shuts a door and lets the silence grind. He talked about trust, about how the world was divided into people who understood things and people who didn't. People who could keep secrets and people who ran their mouths. He made it clear which category I was in, which category he wanted me to be in. Your old man, he teach you about engines? He asked. No, sir. He works steel, not cars. Steel man, huh? Hard work, honest work, but limited. A man who understands engines. Now that's a man who understands how things really work. How to make them go. Make them stop. Make them do what you want. I nodded, drinking it in. He was offering me knowledge my father couldn't give. Understanding beyond correction and discipline. Or so I thought. My hands shook after. Not from fear. From something sharper. The thrill of being chosen. Chapter 4. The first lesson. The questions came next. School, friends, home. He didn't care about the answers. He cared about the lean, the way I bent forward, hungry for his voice. That's how attention works. It makes you chase it. I would have told him anything. Not because he demanded, but because he let me speak without strap or prayer hanging over me. Second time in the truck, a week later. Same time, same place. But this time the comics appeared. Real crime magazines. The kind the drugstore kept behind the counter. Stories about murders, robberies, cons, adult content, forbidden knowledge. He handed them over like they were communion wafers, sacred and secret. I read while he drove, farther this time, out past the neighborhood, toward the industrial yards where the warehouses squatted like ugly dogs. Fewer people, more privacy. But I was too absorbed in the stories to notice. You understand why they got caught? He asked, nodding at the magazine. They made mistakes. They talked, trusted the wrong people. Didn't understand that secrets are only valuable if you keep them. And then the touch came. Quick, casual. A hand too long on my shoulder, then my thigh. My breath locked in my chest, but I didn't move. Couldn't. His voice rolled easy, steady. He didn't have to threaten. The silence did the work. Some things are just between men, he said. Boy men. Becoming men. Your father, he doesn't understand. Too rigid, too old-fashioned. But you and me, we understand how the world really works. The hand stayed. I felt every finger, every ounce of pressure. Part of me screamed to move, to run. But another part, the part that had been shaped by straps and silence, by ledgers and performances, that part calculated, measured, wondered what this discomfort was worth, what it might buy me. I tell myself now it was just another correction, like the strap, like the rosary. A boy doesn't choose his lessons. He endures them, learns from them, makes use of them. But I knew, even then, that this was different. This was violation dressed as privilege. Abuse wrapped in attention. And the worst part of me was grateful for it, because it meant I mattered. That's the real horror. Not what he did, but what I let him make me believe about it. Chapter 5. Breaking Point. One ride turned to more. The questions sank deeper. The touches, too. Words bent into whispers I didn't understand, but nodded along with. And then came the act itself. Rough, confusing. A storm I swallowed whole. My body knew it wasn't right, but my head clung to the thought. I was picked. I won't detail it. Can't. Some things don't need spelling out, and the mind protects itself by blurring certain edges. But the progression was textbook, I understand now. Grooming, they call it. Building trust, then violating it. Making the victim complicit. Making them believe they chose it. Each time was the same ritual. The truck pulling up. The invitation. The ride getting longer, farther from the neighborhood. The magazines. The conversations. The gradual escalation. And through it all, his voice, steady and reasonable, explaining how this was normal, how this was what men did, how I was special for understanding. The pain was one thing. Physical pain I knew. The old man's strap had taught me how to endure, how to separate mind from body. But the confusion was worse. The sick feeling that came after, mixed with relief that it was over, mixed with dread that it would happen again, mixed with a perverse pride that I'd been chosen. Outside, the block kept moving. Mothers hanging laundry, fathers reading papers, kids yelling at stickball. Nobody asked. Nobody stopped. That silence held me down tighter than his grip. I walked home sore, sick, dizzy. But I smiled when my mother looked up. Smiled too wide, too long. She said, "Johnny, you smile too much." If only she knew what that smile was hiding. The mask I'd been building, performance I'd been perfecting. It all came in handy. I could sit at dinner, pass the potatoes, answer questions about school, all while something inside me screamed. The strap had taught me to separate pain from expression. Now I applied that lesson to something worse. Ma's rosary clicked in the corner. The old man's strap hung on the wall, and I sat between them, carrying a secret that made both seem almost quaint, almost innocent. Chapter 6. The Ledger. After that, I started keeping score. Not of him, of them. The neighbors. The mothers who watched through curtains. The fathers who buried themselves in newsprint. The kids who whispered but never shouted. Every one of them owed me. Every silence was a coin dropped in my account. My ledger expanded. New categories, new entries. But these weren't about favors or respect anymore. These were about complicity, about guilt, about debt that could never be repaid because it was never acknowledged. Mrs. Chen saw me get in the truck 4 times, never said a word. Owes me her silence, her cowardice, her relief that it wasn't her kid. Mr. Patterson watched from his porch, went back to his newspaper. Owes me his willful blindness, his comfort, his preservation of order over justice. The Brennan kids whispered about the truck, never told their parents. Owe me their self-preservation, their understanding that speaking up means becoming a target. Father Kowalski preached about protecting innocence, never noticed mine being stolen. Owes me his failure, his comfortable assumptions, his useless doctrine. Sensed something wrong. Asked if I was okay. Accepted my lies because truth was too uncomfortable. Owes me her willful ignorance, her prayers that substituted for action. Beat discipline into me, but never noticed when I needed protection. Owed me safety, gave me straps instead. Account permanently overdrawn. Fear is cheap, so is shame. They spent it freely, all over that block. And I collected it, bead by bead, like a rosary of my own making. But the biggest entry was for myself. What did I owe me? I owed me revenge, justice, compensation. But more than that, I owed me understanding. Why had I let it happen? Why had I kept going back? Why had part of me felt grateful even while another part died? The answer came slowly. Because I'd been trained for it. The strap taught me to endure pain without complaint. The rosary taught me that suffering had meaning, that sacrifice was holy. The ledger taught me that everything had value, that every experience was data. He thought he was teaching me. Maybe he was. But I learned more from the silence outside the truck than the noise inside it. That silence told me how easy it was to hide anything, if the world preferred not to see. And if the world preferred not to see, then the world was complicit, And if the world was complicit, then the world owed me. Owed me big. Chapter 7. Closing the door. The door slammed shut with a sound I still hear in my bones. Not just metal. A verdict. The world had shown me what it was willing to ignore. And once you know that, you can't unknow it. The truck stopped coming in the fall of '56. Just disappeared one day, like it had never been there. Maybe he moved on to another neighborhood, another block with its own rhythms and silences. Maybe he got caught somewhere else, by someone less trained in endurance than me. Maybe he just got bored. I never told my father. Never told my mother. The strap and the beads were loud, but his truck was louder. Louder because it was quiet. Louder because it was chosen, or made to seem chosen, which amounts to the same thing. The damage was done, but not the way most people think. It wasn't the acts themselves. Those I could file away, categorize, survive. It was what they taught me about the world, about silence, about complicity, about how easy it is to hurt someone when everyone agrees not to notice. That lesson stayed, grew, became fundamental to everything that came after. If a child could be violated in plain sight, what else could be done? What other violations could hide in ordinary spaces, behind ordinary faces, protected by ordinary silence? They say monsters are born. That's a lie. They're made, built from straps, beads, silence, and trucks rolling slow past neighborhood streets. I wasn't corrected. I wasn't saved. I was seen. And being seen, that's the dangerous part. But here's what they don't tell you. Being seen and ignored is worse than being invisible. Being visible to violence while invisible to help. That creates something new. Something that understands the game, sees through the performance, knows where all the bodies are buried, because it watched them get planted. The man in the truck taught me about violation, but the neighborhood taught me about permission. About how violation happens with everyone's silent agreement. About how the world runs on agreed-upon ignorance. And once you understand that, once you see how the machinery really works, you can operate it yourself. You can violate and know that silence will protect you. You can hurt and trust that eyes will look away. You can become the thing that everyone sees, but nobody stops. The truck is gone. The man is gone. The block looks the same as it did before. Mothers, fathers, kids, routines, rhythms. But I'm different. I see what they don't see. I know what they won't know. I carry that truck inside me now, along with the strap and the beads. Order remains. But order, I've learned, is just another word for agreed-upon blindness. And I've learned to operate in that blindness, to use it. to make it work for me, the way it once worked against me. The next entries will show how the lessons of the truck got applied, how violation became methodology, how the victim studied his victimization until he understood it well enough to reverse it. But that comes later. For now, this chapter closes. The door slams, the echo fades, and I'm left with the knowledge that changed everything. The world will let you get away with anything, as long as you let them pretend they didn't see it. End of entry 3.
I trust you enjoyed this glimpse into a most curious diary. If so, leave behind a small token of your delight with a like, and do consider joining our circle by subscribing. And remember, ring the little bell, and you shall be the very first to know when another diary or a fresh entry emerges from the shadows. And if a whisper stirs in your mind, a thought, a riddle, perhaps a name of someone whose secrets you would dare to uncover, leave it for me below. I read them one by one. And who knows, your wish may guide my hand to the very next diary I choose from my collection.